A historical event, a historical migration took place that no one is really taught about, nobody really thinks about, but it affects all of us deeply on a day to day basis, and it is the reason the world is the way it is today. Now, this took place around 80, 100 years ago here in the United States and is still taking place in various countries around the world, but this is a global migration, a global activity. And what happened, and this is affecting all of us, at some point in our history, our ancestors made the choice from living in agrarian villages, farm based towns, and migrating into the cities. Now, I've covered this in previous videos. My family and I lived on a modern day homestead. We had internet, we had electricity, all these types of things. And we were close to cities and we could shop and get things that people need. So it wasn't like we were out in the middle of the forest somewhere out in some, off the grid somewhere. And the major lesson that I learned from this experience was, one of the major lessons was how dependent all of us are in the modern day system. Now, farming in itself, the individual activities aren't necessarily hard, but collectively living on a farm, living on a homestead, living in an agrarian village is great and it's natural and it's rewarding in lots of different ways, but it's also very difficult. And there's no guarantees. There's no insurance that your crops won't fail. There's no real margin for error. If you read any novels or see any stories about the people who live this way, there was always years of famine, years of strife, years of where the crops didn't come in, people being hungry, and difficulties and stress and these types of things, because you were at the mercy of nature and various other elements, and so there were no guarantees. And life itself there's a lot of work involved. People were working 10, 12-hour days every day, and there wasn't the luxury and the types of perks that we all have in the modern day lifestyle. And so what you had was free time and comfort available, and people eventually migrated to the city because they were given this deal. The people that ran the city said, you won't have to work every day. You'll have a day or two off. And instead of doing everything, making your own clothes, growing your own food, producing your own materials, getting stuff to heat your house, you'll work a job, you'll get a certain amount of money, and with that money, you'll buy everything else you need. And so people took this deal. Sometimes they were driven off their land by force, but people eventually migrated to the cities. And this is how our modern day system works. We all work a singular specified job. People have some specified skill, and you get money from that specified skill. And then you buy everything else you need. And a lot of people who came off the farms enjoyed this because it was just not as hard as it used to be. And they were able to, some of them, become really wealthy and live like kings. And they had all of these luxuries, all these types of things that you see now in the modern day system. And the cities were magical places full of culture and lots of different things to do. And people had lots and lots of free time now, a lot more free time than they had before. And they didn't have as many family obligations, all the things that left when they no longer needed big family, big villages and big rural communities supporting each other. And so now there was entertainment and all these things. So this is where the modern day beast has been born. And a lot of it came from people having an aversion to the difficulties and hard work and strife and all the things that went along with the agrarian lifestyle. And they didn't value the hard work in the community and the people and the loved ones that they had around them. And they were lured into this deviant lifestyle, the decadent lifestyle of the modern day system, with all its many pleasures and different things. And now I see something that's kind of hopeful, because after 3 or 4 generations of this, you see that people are now having an aversion. They are dissatisfied with a lack of community, with the instability and lack of trust in their relationships with their loved ones, with their significant others, and they're starting to crave something real. The reason I'm saying this is that I think this is a hopeful thing. So I started watching the Grammys last night. Now, many people know who come to this YouTube channel that I didn't have a TV since, I don't know, 2007, 2008, many years ago, and then stayed in India for a period of 3 years before returning to the States. And now I've been covering things on the television, and I have been stunned by how much has changed even in that short period. And I used to watch sporting events, so those are familiar to me, watching the Super Bowl, but I always disliked these award ceremonies, these really ritualistic and heavy duty, materialistic and branding and all this celebrity culture that goes on there. I just never could sit through more than a couple minutes of it. But yesterday I found out that the Grammys were on, and I knew I'd make some sort of video on this stuff because this has been really a high level. There's just been so much. I've called 2017 the year of the beast because all of the things that have happened already in this year is a very intense year, and 2016 was already a rough year. So I started watching the Grammys, and it was hard for me to sit through any portion of it, but I realized they said Beyonce was going to perform, and I knew that was going to be something. And I ended up covering that and making a video about it. So I thought I'd make it through till Beyonce's performance. So that was about, 20 or 30 minutes into the Grammys. And what I realized while watching this was there isn't really much of a definition. There isn't much of a segue or a change in tone and attitude and intention between anything in these award ceremonies and really anything that you watch on TV now in terms of Illuminati symbolism and these psychological operations and all these things. It's just one big long stream of it. Because if you watch the commercials and you watch the performances and you watch how they stage and craft everything, it's just loaded with all these same things that they've been pushing in individual movies and individual TV shows for many years. It's just, there's nothing that you can say, well, this isn't somehow connected to what we call the Illuminati or the controlling system. And it's really depressing. I think, in talking about this, when normal average people start using these symbols and start copying the celebrity culture, and then celebrities themselves that have never had a talk with anybody, no one's ever told them that they have to do this stuff or be part of the Illuminati agenda or whatever it's called. I call it the controllers, the controlling agenda, that they will push out this same stuff, these same narratives, these same symbols automatically because it's just what's become popular, that everyone's just accepted. It's fully integrated into our system. Where it used to be piecemealed out, now the whole show is saturated with it. And there's, like in Beyonce's performance, the production values, the amount of money that they gave to Beyonce for her performance far exceeded the other performers. They were given like a microphone and a stage. Beyonce had all these special effects and all these things. But in reality, all of it's a part of this same old Illuminati fest. And when you have this stuff that's going on with Trump, the conflict, the news from day to day, and how much of the news is actually real, how much of the news is actual real events or some sort of stage psychological manipulation. And now with the digital age and the internet, and everyone's bombarded, spending eight hours a day on the internet, bombarded with all this information, it's just a long stream of consciousness of this same type of agenda. But what you see more and more, and this is the hopeful part, is that people are starting to crave something real. They want to have real relationships. They want to go back to the farm. They want to be out in nature. They want to break from the Wi-Fi and the electromagnetic poisoning. People's bodies are starting to break down. They want real life. They want relationships with people that they can sustain, lifelong relationships, marriages that don't end after 5, 10, 15 years. They want to have a real family. They want to feel loved. They don't want to feel alone. and all these types of things. It's a growing awakening. They want to feel God's love in their life. They want to have a spiritual connection. And I'm saying this in part because there was almost no applause and no energy in any of the performances. People are just like, we've seen this a million times before. You know, they've been doing this for 50, 60 years. The Super Bowl, it's like Super Bowl 51. 51 years of Super Bowls. You know, after a while, well, some team wins, some team loses. Who cares? Same thing every year. They can't make it exciting anymore. It's not new. And the way the internet is and people's attention spans are, everyone needs constant stimulation. And so after a while, people are saying, you know what? I just want something different. I want something that's not like this. This is just not exciting. It's no longer stimulating people. It's no longer activating and finding interest in them. And people are starting to wake up. Their hearts are craving to feel God's love and feel love of other human beings. Again, we live in sort of a loveless society where love is expressed through material pleasures and ego satisfaction. And the only way that I can cover these things, the reason I gave a TV away years ago, and I worked as a counselor with abuse with kids who were sex offenders, very intense job, very stressful job. And the reason that I'm able to cope with these types of things is that I do a meditative cleaning and meditate on God's love in my heart for at least an hour every day. And then I go out for walks, go out to natural areas, go out to the park and exercise. And this helps to combat the heavy doses of this electromagnetic poisoning and all of this kind of just ickiness that's on the TV shows and the internet and all these things. And even with that, I could only make it through 20 minutes of the Grammys or 30 minutes. And I was restless. It was hard to do. I knew I was going to make some videos about it. And yet even then it was hard because I was looking at it as not like some pleasurable activity, but a task that I had to perform. Even that is really difficult. So I think that this is a sign of hope. You're going to see more and more people who just want something more. They're realizing that there's got to be something more to life than what's been presented by the system and the beast. And no longer do they have the incentives of knowing how hard it was to live in these farm-based communities and these things, which were very rewarding and very nurturing and very real and very natural for human beings. It's a natural way. Human beings live in village-based family. The family unit, like lions live in prides and cows live in herds and fish live in schools, human lives in families, but that's been disintegrated by our modern system. And people are feeling this. They're feeling they're missing something. And I think that what you'll see in the next, 10 or 15 years, just a real craving for change, because it's jumped the shark. Our culture has jumped the shark, and more people are realizing this, and they're wanting something more. So I think this is a definite sign of hope. It made me feel, I think, good about watching this, because I'm thinking how much more can people take? Because what are they going to show next? How much lower can it go? How much more graphic can things be? How much over the top in terms of special effects and stimulation do things need to be for people to still stay connected to the system and find some interest in it? It's no longer exciting. It's just played out. So this is Paul Romano reporting from the apocalypse, and everybody have a blessed day.